Imagine walking through the Sahara Desert, looking down and seeing an ice cream cone sticking out of the ground. Stunned, you begin to rack your brain for some conceivable explanation as to how it would be possible for it to be sitting here in this environment. Your first thought might be it simply isn't really made of ice cream and just resembles one, but after testing it, you confirm it's truly made of frozen dairy, so you continue to brainstorm. Perhaps there's a camp with a freezer nearby, or maybe it fell out of a low-flying airplane. You might even entertain the idea that someone's developed a drone with an onboard fridge that just deposited this tasty treat seconds before you arrived. The last thing you're likely to do is to question whether you're actually in a desert or not. Now, does all this sound a little funny to you? Well, I can remember just such a scenario playing out beginning in 2005 when Dr. Mary Schweitzer, a paleontologist from the United States, discovered soft tissue inside the femur of a Tyrannosaurus rex that was supposedly 70 million years old. The inside of the bone wasn't completely filled up with minerals as is usual. And Dr. Schweitzer's team from Montana State University used chemicals to dissolve the bony matrix, revealing the soft tissue still present. Using a pair of tweezers, she demonstrated on camera that the material inside the bone was actually soft and stretchy, completely unfossilized. And then she reported that there were also the remains of blood and blood vessels still intact inside as well. She's been quoted as saying that the blood vessels were flexible and in some instances you could squeeze out their contents. Furthermore, she said the microstructures that look like cells are preserved in every way. Another portion of the tissue was described as flexible and resilient, and when stretched, returns to its original shape. On top of the many dragon legends from people groups worldwide and the copious amounts of petroglyphs, carvings, and other artwork indicating that people have seen dinosaurs throughout history, other than finding a human and dinosaur skeleton buried together, you could hardly think of more conclusive evidence of dinosaurs living recently rather than millions of years ago. Schweitzer's team had presented solid evidence this was indeed soft tissue inside a dinosaur, and a North Carolina State University article confirmed. Colleagues at Harvard successfully sequenced the dinosaur protein that Schweitzer had extracted from the tissue, identifying the amino acids and confirming that the material from the T-Rex was collagen. From a paleo standpoint, sequence data really is the nail in the coffin that confirms the preservation of these tissues, Schweitzer says. This bombshell report ignited a firestorm surrounding the creation-evolution debate, as biblical creationists like myself began eagerly presenting the pictures shown in Science magazine to audiences at our presentations to help demonstrate that the facts we see in God's world match the history we read in God's Word in Genesis, which includes a young earth and no mention of the story of evolution. Again, this was powerful evidence that the poster boys for evolution, dinosaurs, hadn't died out millions of years ago, because there's simply no way soft tissue could survive that long, especially in an environment like Hell Creek in Montana where it was found. She admitted as much in a Discovery Channel TV show, discussing what her reaction was upon first observing what was inside the bone.
Blood vessels.
There they are.
Transparent, hollow, pliable, flexible, branching blood vessels that contain small round red microstructures floating in the vessels. I said, this is not possible. Do it again. When you think about it, the laws of chemistry and biology and everything else that we know say that it should be gone. It should be degraded completely.
Now, unsurprisingly, some evolutionists downright denied what Schweitzer said she discovered. So unlikely was her claim given the evolutionary timescale. I had one reviewer tell me that he didn't care what the data said. He knew that what I was finding wasn't possible, says Schweitzer. I wrote back and said, well, what data would convince you? And he said, none. And behind this denial came the first proposal from Bible skeptics of why it mustn't be what Schweitzer's research showed it as, that what she'd found must be the result of some type of biofilm, simply some type of intrusive organic material that had made its way inside the petrified remains of the T-Rex. This dismissive explanation quickly got out into the atheistic community as a foil against those misleading creationists, despite her findings being in one of the most distinguished evolutionary journals on the planet, with peer-reviewed research behind her, no less. I can remember having several skeptics shout it out when I was doing presentations. "That's just biofilm. It's not dinosaur soft tissue," was the challenge, along with the usual accusations of false reporting, despite the fact I was quoting directly from Schweitzer's article, she herself being an evolutionist, and showing the pictures published in it in their full and complete context. This quickly raced around the internet as well and was the go-to comeback for evolutionists wanting to rain on the creationist parade of this mind-blowing evidence that was in complete contradiction to the evolutionary story. However, shortly thereafter, the biofilm brigade got permanently silenced as Schweitzer's team made an even more staggering discovery in 2009. This time, they found soft tissue, blood, and proteins inside of a supposedly 80 million year old hadrosaur, a duck-billed dinosaur. And to quell all doubts, due to the aggressive pushback she'd received from her fellow evolutionists the first time, despite her reputation as a careful and experienced scientist, Schweitzer's team was meticulous in their work, making sure to account for anything that could discredit her research. The chief of the Division of Matrix Biology at BIDMC, an independent lab used to verify the find, reported, "Because I'm a collagen biochemist, our lab was contacted to perform an independent analysis of this new bone find. We isolated the proteins, collagen, laminin, and elastin from the bone and also extracted bone cells and blood vessels from this sample. Our findings demonstrated that it did contain basement membrane matrix." What Schweitzer's team had demonstrated was above reproach. Her former evolutionary detractors' minds were changed, and the biofilm boys quickly tucked their tails and ran, never to be seen at a creationist presentation again, despite the bravado they'd previously shown. And after this, the dam broke wide open. Just a year later, National Geographic had an article titled, "Many dino fossils could have soft tissue inside." And by 2015, evolutionists were reporting on how an accidental discovery of blood and collagen in several dinosaur bones could rewrite textbooks. They further said, "It suggests that nearly every fossil science studied in the past century could contain similarly well-preserved blood and tissue samples." All this to say, soft tissues have been found in dinosaurs, or dinosaur era, according to the evolutionary timeline, creatures now well over 100 times. These have been found in many different types of organisms, ranging from dinosaurs to mammals, birds, plants, reptiles, amphibians, clams, insects, and arthropods, sponges, and worm fossils. Not only that, but they've also been found all over the world, from China to Mongolia to Russia, Madagascar, Europe, the UK, and all over North and South America. Which means they've been exposed to a wide variety of environmental conditions: cold, hot, wet, and dry. And even further, they've been found throughout the entire fossil record, from the Cambrian to the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods. And they've also been found at different levels, the oldest being a marine worm claimed to be 551 million years old. All of this is totally devastating to the entire evolutionary narrative, because according to a 2002 report in the science journal The Biochemist, even if collagen were stored at 0 degrees Celsius, it would not be expected to last even 3 million years, let alone 65 million, and certainly not over 500 million like our wormy friend is supposed to be. In a more recent 2011 article, it's been experimentally established that at 10 degrees Celsius, around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, only 1% of the original collagen in a bone sample can survive for longer than 700,000 years in an optimal burial environment. But as mentioned, it's a tad hotter than that in Hell Creek, where Schweitzer's soft tissue was recovered. These facts have been a thorn in the evolutionary community's side for several years now, as they're incredibly difficult to explain within an evolutionary millions of years time frame. Dinosaurs are said to have gone extinct 65 million years ago. Dinosaurs are said to have evolved into birds. Dinosaurs are an evolutionary icon, and their fossils are the stuff of legend in the atheistic, humanistic worldview that teaches materialism is absolute. So the discovery of soft tissue inside them is a kill shot for the idea of deep time, which is a requisite for the story of evolution. Because everyone knows soft tissue breaks down very rapidly, certainly much faster than millions of years. But without millions of years, evolution would be impossible. So what to do then for the naturalist?